Hey y'all, you're listening to Criminalist Behavior Podcast. Today's title is The Murder of Former Saints player Will Smith. He was a former defensive end for the New Orleans Saints who was shot and killed in a traffic incident involving a hit and run, and it had to do with road rage. So I know if you're anything like me, we all have our moments where somebody may cut us off and we sitting there thinking in our head, oh my God, bleep, 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 bleep. Those choice words that we may come up with, or we may be like, oh my God, you freaking moron, like, you just freaking cut me out. But nobody's just gonna stop, get out, and handle their business or murder someone just because of it. We may give them a piece of our mind if we see them at a red light, but I mean, we're not gonna get out and kill somebody because of a road rage incident. Like, it's not that serious, and I'm not understanding why people take it to that level. So, if this is your first time listening, hi, my name is Sarah Sidier, and I'm your host for Criminalist Behavior Podcast. It's a Louisiana true crime podcast. So, trigger warning, this episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical violence against adults. Listener discretion is advised. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and I hope you enjoy it. Hopefully this episode goes a little bit more smoother than my first episode. It's a learning curve, and I'm bound to make this happen. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into the case. So Will Smith was born on the 4th of July. It was 1981 in Queens, New York. His mother and father's name was William and Lisa Smith. And he was raised in New York in a city called, forgive me if I mispronounce this, I think it's called Utica. It's Utica. He attended Proctor High School, and he was rated by the Prep Football Report as one of the best defensive line prospects in the state. So in the state of New York, he was rated the best defensive line prospect. He went to Ohio State, and he was a 4-year letterman from the year 2000 to 2003. And he led his team called the Buckeyes to the BCS National Championship back in 2002. It was then that he was named the first team All-American. He was elected for the NFL draft pick back in 2004. He was the 18th pick. Again, that was for the New Orleans Saints under the coach Sean Payton. He had a successful rookie season. He ended up having 30 tackles and 7.5 sacks. He gradually established himself, and he became one of the most premier defensive ends in the NFL. His first season, as a full-time starter, he became the leader of the defensive line. In 2008, he was named for his first Pro Bowl as a starter. And in 2008, the Saints signed him with a 6-year contract at $70 million with a $26 million guarantee. The deal made him the third highest paid defensive end in the NFL. So, guaranteed $26 million. What? As a starter for his first year? That is a lot of freaking money. But, I mean, a lot is on the line. In 2013, that season, he was going to be possibly moving as an outside linebacker, position 3 to 4 defense, for the New Orleans Saints with defensive coordinator Rob Ryan. He eventually, he literally suffered from a torn ACL in the third preseason game, y'all. It was against the Houston Texans, and that was back in 2013. That unfortunately made him sit out for the rest of the season. On August 27th, that happened on the 25th of August. So on August 27th, they placed him on a injured reserve list. and it ended his season, like I said. So the following year in February, he was actually released by the team. So the Saints let him go. He was a great player. He had a lot going for him. So, I mean, I think the Saints releasing him, I mean, probably wasn't a great decision. So, anyways, he decided to move on with his career. And he signed on with the New England Patriots. That was in 2014. And he was released in 2014 in that August season during the preseason. Smith, his personal life, he married a woman named Raquel. People also known her as Nee Joseph. They had 2 children together, and he had another child from a previous marriage. So that is the history of Will Smith. It is not the the singer or the person that you know as Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in West Philadelphia. No, it's not him. Okay, this was an NFL defensive end player for the New Orleans Saints. Okay, this is not Will Smith, and he's not getting jiggy with it. All right. So the other person that's in line with this case that was involved in this hit and run incident, his name was Cardell Hayes. He is the suspect, in case you didn't realize. And he was a 36-year-old with a background as a former semi-pro football player. So he was also into the football player as Will Smith was, but he just went to the semi-pros. Will Smith went up there, bruh. He owned a tow truck business, and his father's name was Anthony Hayes, but in a weird and chaotic incident, his father was actually shot by the NOPD 9 times and was pronounced dead on the scene. So Cardell Hayes got that money from his father because they ended up going to court and everything, and Cardell was awarded some of that money for the wrongful death from the police from shooting his father. I mean, excessive much? Why would you shoot a man 9 times? Unless he was charging at you with a gun coming at you. Like, why would you shoot that man 9 times? Like, that is just insane. But, I mean, we have good police officers, and I would like to believe that, you know, it was just bad decision on that one officer, and it's not how the department runs their regulations. But I mean, as a former police officer, I could guarantee you we have good police officers out there. So, but not all of them are like that. That's just like in every walk of life. You're going to come across these people that are just horrible people, and they make bad decisions. So, like I said, his father passed away, and he got that money. Cardell had a nickname. He was also called Bear. So that's Bear. B-E-A-R, like grizzly bear. He was a former New Orleans prep football star, and he was considered one of Louisiana's rising gridiron stars. So he was pretty good at football, but he just didn't go to the pros. He just went to semi-pros. He played as a player for Crescent City Kings in a local development team. And he was a graduate of the University of New Orleans. In 2014, he appeared as an extra in the film 22 Jump Street. So, you know that movie with, what's his face? Channing Tatum and, oh my God, what's that other little chunky dude with the little chubby cheeks? I don't remember his name, but yeah, 22 Jump Street. I think it was a funny movie, but it was played out, I think. Anyways, on April 9th, 2016, Smith was involved in a traffic accident with a Hummer. The Hummer was driven by 28-year-old Cardell Hayes Smith, and less than 2 blocks away from the Lower Garden District in New Orleans. So I'm jumping right into when the accident happened. Gave the background on Will Smith, a little background on the suspect Cardell. So now we're talking about the accident. So like I said, the accident did happen on April 9th, 2016. And Smith was driving his car and he hit a little fender bender with a Hummer. And in that Hummer, it was Cardell Smith. Like I said, Smith hit the back of Cardell's Hummer, and then he fled the scene. So Cardell was trying to move his car over to like the shoulder to get out the main highway. And as he was doing that, because Smith rear-ended him, after Cardell pulled over to the shoulder, instead of Will Smith pulling over and they exchanging information, whatever, filing an accident report, excuse me, Will Smith fled the scene. So he did wrong, but not victim blaming at all, but he should have pulled over. They should have exchanged information, let bygones be bygones, and boom, call it a night. But that's not what happened. So what happened was, after Hayes realized, hey, Will Smith's not going to pull over and exchange his information, he was going to go ahead and follow Will Smith to obtain his license plate. In Will Smith's vehicle, it was him, his wife, and 2 other occupants. So that's a total of 4 in Will Smith's vehicle. And then Cardell Hayes had another occupant. None of their names were mentioned or anything, but later, as we get on through the story, you'll realize some of the things that happened. So, like I said, Hayes, aka Cardell, he did follow Smith to try to obtain his license plate. Smith refused to pull over, so Hayes took it upon himself to go ahead and ram the back of Will Smith's Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon in an ongoing confrontation. The impact was so hard that it broke the rear window in the Mercedes that Will Smith was driving with his wife and the 2 other occupants. So apparently Will Smith at this point is like, the hell with this. He stopped his car. They all got out. All the occupants in both vehicles got out. It was a total of 6 people. And it led on to an ongoing confrontation that became heated rather quickly. At that point, there was a bystander at a nearby bar, and it said that Hayes mentioned that he had a gun. Will Smith then stated he had a gun, so they were saying, boom, 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 you got a gun? Oh, yeah, you got a gun? I got a gun, too. What's up? So I'm not sure, because I couldn't find any information leading to up until like Cardell's story stating that apparently Will Smith had a gun, and not sure if Will Smith held that gun, if he brandished a gun, if he started like pointing the gun at Cardell. Either way, Cardell unloaded his gun onto Will Smith. He shot Will Smith 7 times in the back, and then an 8th time. And that one hit him in like the shoulder. So that is excessive. Shot him 8 times, y'all. 8 times. Like, 1 time you could call self-defense, but 8 times, yeah, I think it's freaking excessive. I would say so. So when the investigators arrived later on, they found Smith with 8 bullet wounds, and he was slumped over in his front seat with a pistol. I can't remember what it was. I want to say it's a .38, but don't quote me on that. But anyways, it was a pistol that was tucked into in between the seat and the center console of his Mercedes. And Raquel, which is Will Smith's wife, as I stated before, was shot in the leg twice, and she was badly wounded. She was taken off the scene, and she received medical treatment. She did not sustain life-sustaining injuries, but it was a bad wound for her. Obviously, you got shot in the leg twice, right? So, an off-duty police officer who was on a date at the same bar as the other bystander that was at the scene approached the scene after he heard all the gunfire, right? And he was told by Cardell that he just used a pistol to shoot Smith after hearing Smith threaten him with a gun. So Hayes told the off-duty officer, and I'm going to go ahead and use the quotation, so open quotations, what was I supposed to do? Close quotations. On a 911 call that was received that night, it captured Hayes in the background stating he had shot a man who announced his intention of getting his gun from a car. So this leads me to say that Cardell shot Will Smith, who didn't have a gun on him, who just stated he had a gun on him. So before Will Smith could even do anything, he got shot. He didn't brandish a gun. He wasn't pointing a gun at Cardell. He just flat out got shot just because he said he had one. Really? Okay. Okay. We could go with that. So Hayes was arrested immediately at the scene. It was appeared that a fully loaded, gotta get my words out. Anyways, a fully loaded 9mm handgun was found in Smith's car. Okay, so I was incorrect. It wasn't a 38, it was a 9mm. So Hayes and a passenger in his vehicle claimed self-defense, like I said. You can't claim self-defense. You shot the guy 8 times, y'all. Like, it's not self-defense. Once, okay. Twice, maybe. But, bruh, 8 times? No, boo. No. Anyways, after an investigation, the New Orleans Police Department, aka NOPD, charged Hayes with second-degree murder. So, Cardell Hayes was charged with second-degree murder for shooting Will Smith in the back with 8 wounds, and a post-mortem toxicology report was ran on Will Smith, and it ended up showing that he was well over the limit 3 times for the blood alcohol content. He actually tested at a 0.235. Louisiana's legal limit for blood alcohol content is 0.08. So, like, yeah, boo. 3 times. I think, yeah, a little tipsy. So, Smith was buried on April 16th, 2016. His funeral service was held days later after he passed. Of course, after toxicology test and, autopsy, all this good stuff was performed on him. He was in a theater full of mourners after a viewing open to the public at the Saints practice facility in Metairie. This was in the suburb of New Orleans. Raquel Smith, again, this is Will Smith's wife, she went to the visitation held for her husband in a wheelchair. Obviously, she was shot in the leg twice, right? Raquel was dressed in a black long-sleeve shirt, and she was wearing sunglasses. She brought their 3 children to the funeral and stayed for several hours. She was always surrounded by his former teammates and the coaches. He had a closed casket, and the casket was placed on the 50-yard line on the field. On each side of the casket, there was a monitor showing clips of his playing days. So they had little excerpts of him and his great, time as a defensive end in the NFL, playing for the Saints and for the New England Patriots. After the family paid all their respects, the public was finally allowed in. The first man in line stopped in front of the casket covered with yellow flowers, and with a trumpet, he played "When the Saints Go Marching In." A trumpet playing "When the Saints Go Marching In." I don't know about y'all, but if y'all go to funerals, especially those military funerals, and they're playing the bugle, and then you hear the gunshots, oh my God, sorry for those with PTSD in regards. But, y'all, it's the saddest thing ever. Like, it's a funeral, of course it's sad, but oh my God, that puts the emphasis on it with the bugle playing or the trumpet. That's just crazy. So the coach for the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, he wanted to get Will Smith's children away from the ceremony because everybody was sad, and all there was sad faces, respectfully, right? So he ended up showing Will Smith's kids what their dad's days would have been like as a Saints player. And the kids lit up when they started seeing everything that Sean Payton was showing him that his father did or would be doing had he still been alive as a Saints player. And they went into the weight room. He eventually showed them where Smith's locker was, and they took him into the little meeting rooms too, just to give him a little tour of the facility. So the visitation was followed in New Orleans fashion by a second line parade. So if y'all don't know anything about New Orleans, y'all, we throw it down. Mardi Gras is high. You know what I'm saying? Mardi Gras is high up on that list. You should know this, okay? And so, like I said, there was a little parade after his funeral, and it was through the Lower Garden District, the same neighborhood where Will Smith was killed. So, enough about that. So, that's all going. Now we get to the court case, y'all. So, the trial began in 2016. It was on December 5th. Orleans, my God. Sarah, do you know where you're from? Yeah, anyways. Orleans Parish Criminal District Court is where they held the trial against Cardell Hayes. So, the jury found Cardell Hayes guilty of manslaughter in the shooting of Will Smith, and they ended up charging him with attempted manslaughter of his wife, Raquel. Raquel got on that stand and testified, stating that she tried talking and reasoning with her husband, Will Smith, to walk away from the incident. Just leave it alone. Like, reminding him, hey, look, you had 3 small children at home. Don't forget that. And she said that it appeared that Cardell Hayes was more physically imposing than her husband. The children were at home with a babysitter as they were just enjoying a night after celebrating things. So she stated she tried reasoning with her husband and letting him know that the violence was not worth it. Like, why put yourself through all that trouble? No, you're not. It's not worth it. So Raquel then recalls that Hayes deliberately pumped 2 bullets into one of her legs and shot her husband dead cold without any provocation. And then he turned and he looked at Raquel. This is Cardell, right? Open quotes. Look at you now. Close quotations. Raquel recalled, and she stated her worst nightmare happened for no reason. Raquel stated her account was confirmed with the testimony from all the former Saints teammates and the fellow Super Bowl champion Pierre Thomas. He described riding in a separate car just ahead of the second collision, seeing Will Smith get killed. At one point, it was like Hayes' legal team suggested that a retired police captain who was friends with Will Smith stormed onto the scene and to burnish memories of the fallen ex-football pro player, right? Whisked that gun away before investigators could recover it. So it was Hayes' defense stating that because Will Smith was former friends with this police officer, that this police officer went on the scene, retrieved this gun that Will Smith had in order to make him look innocent due to his former status known as a pro football player, right? Crazy. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my place. That same police officer, right, that Hayes' defense attorney is arguing that could have possibly whisked away a gun that Will Smith banished, was that same police officer that Hayes' father, aka Cardell, right? Remember how we said that he got shot 9 times by the police officer? Hayes' father tried to stab that officer before he got shot by other officers months after Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, y'all. And this happened 11 years prior to Hurricane Katrina. Police said that Hayes' father had a mental health emergency on the day that the officers shot him. The Hayes legal team's corrupt cop angle relied on well-documented histories of New Orleans Police Department that had violated public civil rights so many times that it entered into an agreement with the federal government in 2012 to implement what then was unprecedented number of agency-wide reforms. That theory suffered a blow, obviously, right? After a prosecution established that officer alleged to have engaged in a cover-up for the sake of Smith's legacy was waiting for Smith miles away. So that officer that they said possibly was corrupt and went and tried to hide evidence that Will Smith was banishing a type of another gun wasn't even near the scene. So that's null and void. He was miles away at a hotel bar where his group was headed before he was killed. So all told, neutral bystanders all saw what took place. They heard the conflict. They heard Raquel Smith's testimony that her husband was calmly walking away from the escalating violence. So he was walking away, hence him being shot in the back, right? Okay. Any crime person, anybody knows any attention to detail knows that, hello, if he was banishing a weapon, he obviously didn't have a gun, as suggested. Evidence points to he was walking away, because if he wasn't walking away, how the hell he got shot in the back, right? You wasn't at immediate danger. You took it upon yourself, cold blood, and shoot this man because your road rage just got the best of you. I get that he didn't do right. He did not stop whenever he hit your bumper, but was it really worth your life in prison? Was it really worth to take the father of 3 young children? Was it really worth it? So, the jurors acquitted Hayes of intentionally ramming Smith's car in the moments before the shooting. So, they didn't even charge him with hitting Will Smith's car because, well, Will Smith hit his. I guess eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's okay, it's even. Smith hit my car, I hit his, boom, it's good. We're not even going to worry about that. Prosecutors wanted to prove he had done it to establish that he was the aggressor in the deadly shown incident, right? So jurors rejected that Hayes had willfully murdered Smith or attempted to murder Raquel, which would have landed him a mandatory sentence to life in prison. So they didn't think that he did that, right? 10 out of the 12 jurors voted to convict Hayes of lesser charges instead, and they found him guilty of manslaughter and attempted manslaughter. So, yeah, not attempted murder or murder, attempted manslaughter and manslaughter. He unintentionally but illicitly killed Will Smith and wounded his wife in the heat of an argument for traffic road rage, y'all. It became one of the highest profile cases in the New Orleans criminal courthouse since 1969, when it was the local the businessman was charged with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and was acquitted. So that's just a little fun fact that I threw in there, because this is a high profile case. I mean, compared to the President Kennedy, really. So on April 20th, 2017, Cardell Hayes was sentenced 25 years in prison for the charge of manslaughter. And then on top of that, a 15 years charge for attempted manslaughter, and it was to be served concurrently. So on April 19th, the day before the sentencing, the judge denied Hayes a motion for a new trial, because apparently Hayes was trying to get a new trial going. 3 years to the day after Hayes was sentenced, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down the Ramos versus Louisiana ruling. So if you are unfamiliar with that declared that a non-unanimously criminal conviction violates the 6th and 14th Amendment. So basically, because it was 10 out of 12 jurors, it wasn't right. He didn't stand a fair trial. It wasn't unanimously. It was literally 10 out of 12 instead of 12 out of 12. Like, it had to be... Nobody could have a different opinion in reference to this. So this meant that the defendant cannot be convicted if some jurors disagree with the verdict. Louisiana was only one of 2 states that allowed non-unanimous verdicts. I can't say that word for whatever reason, but that was until 2018. He was released on bond in 2021 after he served 4 years of his 25-year sentence. The stage was set that Hayes was to be retried on reduced charges for which he had been once convicted. So it wasn't enough that you got a reduced charge from murder and attempted murder to manslaughter and attempted manslaughter. You're trying to get something less. Bro, you in the wrong. Just accept it. Just, you did the crime, do the time. Seriously. Anyways, where are we at? Because Hayes had not exhausted all his appeals, he was directly impacted by the Ramos decision, and the decision of denying a new retrial was reversed back in November of 2020. So on January 11, 2021, the Supreme Court vacated Hayes' conviction pending a new trial. So they threw that old conviction out, and they granted him a new trial. Hayes was initially convicted of manslaughter. So he cannot face charges greater than manslaughter in the retrial, but he can still be charged with manslaughter or a lesser charge than that, but nothing greater. So they can't trial him for murder or attempted murder or anything like that. So on January 27th, 2024, that was literally a few days ago, y'all. A few days ago. Today is February 1st when I'm recording this. So that was, let's see, 28, 29, 30, 31, 4 days ago, y'all. Literally 4 days ago. Yes, I literally just counted that out loud. Don't judge. Anyways, like I said, January 27, 2024, he was found guilty again of manslaughter, and his retrial, where he faces up to 40 years in prison. So he is facing up to 40 years in prison, y'all. So okay, thank you, come again. So you went from 25 years and a 15 on top of that. Guess what? You got the same thing. Your retrial did you nothing. You're still guilty, boo. And I'm glad, because he was wrong in this, y'all. So if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on all your local podcast apps. Just to mention a few, we got Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. Like I said, wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to come back next week for the discussion. We're taking it back to the Jennings 8 murders. So that is 8 murders, y'all, that happened in Jennings, Louisiana. Excuse me. Until then, this is your host, Sarah Studier, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe to Criminalist Behavior Podcast, a Louisiana true crime podcast. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include some pictures on my video, and then I'm going to link my sources so you could have for your reference. I hope that y'all enjoy the show, and please do message y'all. Y'all can comment on the videos. Y'all can message me, email me. The email address is criminalbehaviorpodcast@gmail.com. So I hope to hear from you. Let me know what y'all thought about this, how you feel about the verdict. Was Hayes in the wrong? I mean, what do you think about the self-defense claim that they were trying to claim on that? And, you know, the fact that you shot his wife twice in the leg too, who I'm assuming was still in the vehicle, but I'm not 100. But anyways, thank y'all again for listening. I truly do this for a passion, as I enjoy this, and I'm always interested in true crime. So thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a great day.